It's 7:13. Welcome back. In the aftermath of the blizzard, so much snow this winter, a lot of Connecticut property owners are now having to deal with the consequences. You know, the ice damage, missing shingles, flooding, and more. This is also the time when so-called storm chasers are driving around the state to make a quick buck, a lot of times unethically or illegally. So here to help us avoid some problems during the cleanups and the repairs is Howard Schwartz, our good friend and Executive Communications Director at the Connecticut Better Business Bureau. Howard, how are you? Good to have you here on this Sunday morning.
Well, nice to be here, Jim.
You know, as Sam and I were just sort of joking about right there, storm chasers is a kind name, but I guess you have to say something besides lowlifes who go out and do this.
Instead of all types of words. Storm chasers, as the name suggests, they follow tragedy, they look at the headlines, and we see this this time of year when there's a blizzard, when there's flooding, when there are tornadoes or hurricanes, those types of things. Sometimes they come from out of state, sometimes they come from in-state, and sometimes they come from absolutely nowhere. They'll ask you for money in advance. If they do any work, they might start it and leave, or they'll just take the money and run.
What are the most common areas of repair that they try to get people on?
Well, it started actually a couple of weeks ago and continues to some extent now, and that's to get people to get rid of some snow that might still be on the property. We see this in particular with the elderly people or people who are infirmed and can't really take care of themselves from that point of view. Ice dams leaking into ceilings and walls, and that can be very expensive if you don't get rid of it, snow on the roof, and we're talking about flooding very soon. And if we look at Boston, for example, it's the poster child for bad business practices, where we saw people being charged hundreds of dollars an hour, thousands of dollars per job to come and take snow or ice off of somebody's roof at Sunday. I'm sorry. And the bottom line is that there's no cap on what people can charge for these services.
Yeah, there's no regulation. This is sort of, it's really people have to watch out for themselves because you can't count on the law or the state or regulators to handle the situation. That's
right. It's on a first-come, first-served basis, the supply and demand situation, but there's a shorter supply than the demand, and anyone who's ever tried to flag down someone with a snowplow to do their driveways will find out if they don't have a contract, it can be very expensive, hundreds of dollars.
So how do we've raised awareness. How now can people handle these situations when they get that knock on the door and saying, hey, we noticed you needed blank, blank, blank?
Well, knock on the door is one of the red
That's your first
flags.
sign right there.
Absolutely. If somebody unsolicited comes up and says, you got a problem with your work, your roof that needs some work or something similar. The problem is if they're not insured, if they're not registered, they may not even be competent to do the job. Right. They get up on your roof, they can hurt themselves, you'll get hit for the bill, or even worse, if they're working on electrical systems in your home or the roof, they could put a hole through it and make things a great deal worse than they are. And there are a couple of quick red flags that comes from the National Storm Damage Center. If you find someone who's not licensed or insured and little or no local presence. And one of the things we should remember, don't hire at your front door or through bulletin board ads that you might see at the supermarket. What do you know about these people? You should certainly check them out. Hire a specialist. If the snow or ice are not removed properly, be careful because an unqualified contractor, or at least a qualified contractor, may not want to fix the work because it's been botched by somebody else. Get several bids. You may not be able to get your first choice because they're very busy at this time of year, but have it done properly rather than deal with the consequences. Check their insurance, very, very important. Any kind of reputable contractor would want to do that. Get several bids and references from people. If they can't provide it, that's a bad sign also. And draw up a contract, even something as simple as a handwritten contract that specifies what kind of work has to be done, what the time frame is, how urgent the work is. And that's one of the advantages of going to several people.
Certainly in this day and age of the internet and so many sites dedicated to finding and getting reviews of service providers, you ought to be able to find out if somebody is legit or not. In closing, Howard, I just want to say what really burns my behind is that it's the elderly who get most victimized by this because they're worried, and if somebody knocks on the door and says, you got a hole in your roof up there, I know you can't see it, we'll go fix that for you. And then they charge them $3,000 to go up there and spray some spray paint on it or something like that. So look out for your neighbors, look out for your parents and grandparents.
And discuss this with them, absolutely.
All right, Howard, thank you so much for coming by.
My pleasure, Jim.
All right, you've been warned, folks, so take it to heart. For more info about this, go to WTNH.com, click the On Air tab, and pull down to the Good Morning Connecticut weekend section.